We're live. Welcome to our Sunday's webinar on mentorship and sponsorships. We're going to get started just in a few minutes, but as we're getting started and you all are settling in, it would be greatly appreciated if you could get your phones or wherever you're at to slido.com. And log in via hashtag 823-8534, which we'll be using for some of the participation questions from the audience. In addition to that, you are absolutely more than welcome to use the chat feature and chat amongst yourselves and with us. We're going to be paying attention to both sides and hopefully answering some questions. So as we kind of get started, I just want to do a little bit of an introduction on the webinar itself. So give me 2 seconds and we'll get going. All right, big screen. All right, and here's our slido.com QR code again. I really appreciate you guys joining in there. We love to hear the conversations and comments, and it'll also help us customize the session based on your feedback right from the get-go. So one of the poll questions that we're going to get into in a few seconds is understanding what do you most struggle with in relation to mentorships and sponsorships, and we'll take a look at some of the responses a bit later on, but highly recommend if you can start populating this, and we'll pop up some of your responses in a few seconds. But a bit about the webinar itself. Today we're joined by Amr Elgwaily, who will actually give us his own introductions a bit later on. But our focus in this second webinar in this series is on strictly mentorships and sponsorships, how to build successful relationships, how to improve these mentor meetings, and really move your mentorships into sponsorships and leverage that for your next job. So we're going to be sharing with you some of our best tips, hacks, and behind the scenes things that we've done that worked really, really well. One of the things that I just wanted to point out, we are going to be sharing a deck, so you do not need to worry about that. But I did want to just draw your attention very quickly to the many ways that you can find MAX and upcoming events. There is definitely a website where you can peruse variety of programs that are available. We have a YouTube channel where this is currently being live streamed too, and as well as Instagram. And we're also always available to you via LinkedIn. So we're more than happy to connect with you offline. If you have questions that we did not get to on this call, I'm always available, as others have already seen from the previous sessions, to connect with offline and have some interesting career conversations. All right, a bit just quickly about the Max Mentorships programs. Some of you may have learned about this session from the Max Mentorship advertising that we've been really pushing out into various streams over the past few weeks. But if you haven't heard about it, we just want to make sure that you are aware that we are now open in Canada. The Canadian Mentorship Program is available for sign up for both mentees and mentors. And if you'd like to be either or, you're absolutely more than welcome to identify that. So the QR code, again, you can access more information and sign up forms on the website itself. But a little bit about Max, just in case you did not know about Max, and this is, your first session with us. It is a fantastic organization that I've gotten in touch with about a year ago. I've attended numerous sessions and been so impressed by the army of volunteers that are doing fantastic jobs, delivering a variety of programs, supporting Muslim professionals in our communities, and just empowering that leadership. So quite a bit of the impact in the community. Again, I highly recommend that you peruse a lot of the great work that's been done and published online. But if you are interested just about some of the programs, I just want to do a quick highlight here in terms of their scholarships. There's an entire suite of professional excellence as well as recognition programs. And as you can see, quite a few new items. So as the volunteers group is growing and fantastic people are being added to this group, there are some great ideas around introducing new new programs and making sure that we meet the current demands of our community. So I highly, highly recommend you to take a look at these, and I'll leave that to you to peruse on your own time. And then as we get started, as always, we'd like to do our Indigenous lands acknowledgement. And I've promised you in our last session, we're going to be doing these differently. So I'd like to acknowledge that we live and work on unceded lands, traditional lands of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. But regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on and resources we use. As Muslims, we commit to continuous learning journey in allyship, to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experiences, to cultivate reconciliation in Canada and US. And with that in mind, again, I mentioned to you before, as a refugee coming into this country and having my home and land taken away, I have a very keen understanding of the suffering that Indigenous peoples have gone through. And I personally commit to not just learn about what has happened in the past, but also financially support the rebuilding of the community. So at the top, we will always include a new resource for you to peruse, to learn. This time around, we're sharing with you the residential school timeline, which had started since 1831. And there was a one point over 130 institutions in Canada, which Human Rights Canada has labeled as deliberate attempt to destroy Indigenous communities and ways of life. So again, as Muslims, we really need to lean in, support rebuilding and build those bridges, as many of us are coming from a variety of countries worldwide that have had their own conflicts and are very familiar with what it feels like to be pushed out of our homes. With that, let me bring you to Amr Elgwaily, who is a fellow Muslim, financial service executive's husband and father in development, similar to myself. Amr, I'll leave it to you to do your intro, as it is quite extensive, and we're really honored to have you.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Aida, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining this Sunday afternoon. I know that Ramadan, we're just in the second half of Ramadan, and people are tired, and I'm sure you have more important things than listen to me talk about this, even though this is it's an important topic, but just thinking about context. But I appreciate you joining. So my name is Amr Elgwaily. I am currently an executive with TD in the US, and I have been with TD for I want to say almost 20 years now, and I've done a number of roles across the US and Canada. I started in investment banking, doing mergers and acquisitions during the financial crisis, and I was focused actually on banks and the financial institution space. Shortly on the tail end of the financial crisis, I then moved to the US because we had just bought we bought a new bank. It was called Commerce Bank at the time, and I helped over the next 6 to 8 years build out their commercial and large corporate banking practices. Following that, I did a stint as the chief of staff for the CEO, and I did that for about 3.5 years. While I was in that role, I built our data and analytics practice. And then when I exited the chief of staff role, I actually took over the data and analytics practice for about 1.5 years. After that, we were in the process of acquiring another bank, and so I got asked to come back into commercial and help work on putting the commercial bank part of the new bank that we were going to acquire together with our commercial bank and build a better end-to-end credit process. So, and so for the last few years, I've been really focused on end-to-end transformation at the bank. And I'm throughout my time, I've done a number of other things, and I've been really focused on talent development, recruiting, particularly from colleges and universities, and I mentor and sponsor and coach a lot. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later, and some of the things that I've tactics and startup strategies, my approach to these things a little bit later. But sorry, personally, I live in London, Ontario. Sorry, Ida. I live in London, Ontario on the weekends, and I commute to New York Monday, and I'm usually in New York from Monday to Friday, and I fly back. I've been married for just over 20 years, going on 21 years, and I have 2 kids, 18 and 15. And they are smarter than I am and keep me on my toes, and I learn a lot from them, all 3 of them, every day.
Mashallah. Thank you for that introduction. I mean, we expert, right? We have expert on the call, which is fantastic and to our great advantage. I'll keep my introduction short because, again, this is a series and you'll hear me introduce myself over and over again. So I'll try to keep you on your toes and give you some new information every single week. So Aida Awan, I'm originally from Bosnia. I came to Canada during Bosnian War in 1993. Canada sponsored my family as a result of my father being held in a concentration camp. I had studied through high school here and received my diploma in both HR and finance at Humber College. I could not make up my mind which one I wanted to do, so I just studied both and ended up working in finance for about 8 years. And I worked in automotive during that time, and it was extremely difficult industry for women. So I took an opportunity to move down and laterally to get out of that a little bit more, and then slowly made my way into technologies, where I've been for over 20 years now. Yes, I know I don't look it, but still, it's been that long. And I've worked at TD, American Express, EDS, HP at the time, and did some fantastic work with amazing people. Delivering technical solutions, transforming organizations, and driving automation, and more recently AI. So lots of great things, and throughout all of that, I met some wonderful people, always heavily engaged in diversity and inclusion initiatives wherever I've been. That's been my passion. And I've been absolutely honored and so happy that I can help with Max Mentorship Program bring this series, which will complement your mentorship sessions with your mentors. We've picked a variety of topics, and we actually are looking for your input on anything else that you want us to cover as we plan out our end of the year. So stay tuned to hear a little bit more later about the survey itself and how you can help shape our conversations in the future. All right, so we are back with our active poll on the what do you most struggle with in relation to mentorship and sponsorships. So if you haven't had yet an opportunity to join in on Slido, again, it's hashtag 8238534. And if I'll ask, if you don't mind, Amr, if you're seeing anything in the comments that would be great to add in here as well in terms of conversation, please do that. I just don't have that comments screen up momentarily. But for everybody else, we'd love to hear, what do you most struggle with when it comes to mentorships and sponsorships?
Hi, Dad. There's one comment in the comments that says the poll looks like it's disappeared on Slido.
Okay, well, it's back up, so let's go. We are all ears. And what we'll try to do is make sure that we incorporate lack of interest from mentors, broken communications. How do you know if you have the right match? Okay, good ones. I love these ones. We are going to be touching on these for sure. Anything else that comes to mind? Communication end-to-end. Okay, having the right goals set. Yes. Having mentor goals, straightforward, able priorities. Okay. So we're talking about goal setting, prioritization, connecting with the right mentor, lack of interest from mentors, and figure out my path forward. Okay, good ones. Leading a mentor with Muslim-centric issues. Yes, that is why we have this program. You are so in the right place. Okay, not interested in getting sponsors. Yes. Okay. I've experienced quite a number of these. Yep, bad experience with mentors. So we'll definitely touch on some of these. Okay, now you can, let me see if, I'll give you 5 more seconds and then we'll move on, because we do want to get into the details and helping kind of answer some of these questions. As I mentioned, this is a series, so some of our conversation will continue a little bit. How do you structure the meetings with mentors? Oh, I have an answer for that. Fantastic. This is going to be good. Love
Good
it.
questions. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? How
Yeah.
did you know? Yeah, we've been there. That's how we know where we're at into this presentation. Okay, so let's get into this. This is fantastic. I am going to save the bubble cloud on my phone. I can see the responses here as well. So I'll definitely come back to these inputs and we'll make sure we answer. And if we don't, hold us accountable, put a question in the chat or ask us a bit later on to be more specific if we don't get to it. Okay, let's get into some of these things. So on Tuesday, one of the things that I shared with you is Aida's Wheel of Life, which we're not going to go into this detail, but I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of how I organize my mind in terms of what are some of the things that I want to work on, and where I need help in terms of what I'm prioritizing at any moment in my life. So this is kind of what that Wheel of Life looked like. You're absolutely more than welcome to take a look at our YouTube replay of Tuesday's session, where we go into a little bit more detail around this. But personally, when I think about the mentorship and sponsorship, it definitely isn't a one approach. I take learning from any source that I can get it, whether it is books in what we call now influencers. That was not a word back then. And I kind of categorize them based on what I'm hoping to accomplish in each of these areas. So how mine ends up looking like is kind of like this. So again, don't worry about like writing anything down. We'll share with you the screen themselves. So let's say, for example, I have personal goals that I want to achieve in terms of my dean, my practice, my awareness, and just in general improvement and understanding, better understanding of our religion. So there are definitely certain resources that I will use that I feel like I can most connect with and can influence my thinking and therefore my behaviors. So if I kind of apply that through, family, spouse, health, and so on and so forth, there are resources that we rely on that kind of add in bits and pieces of information as I can consume them, right? So for me, mentorships are not just, formal meetings with one individual. There are people that I would consider mentors that they don't even know that they're my mentors, right? I'm learning from them. They're adding value to me. And I would consider them, part of my, resources in Aida making her, life better. So, this is just a variety of, resources that I kind of poke into. And as far as my career, I've had a very challenging mentorship experiences where things have not gone well, where things were extremely awkward, where things were completely misunderstood and misinterpreted, and sometimes there are rumors that get started in the company where all I was actually trying to look for some advice, and it kind of turns into something completely different. So we can definitely touch on some of those things, but this is why I actually go outside, especially as a female, always working in a heavily male dominated industries. I look for knowledge where I can get it, and one of the top ones that I've had was Patty Azzarello, that I highly recommend, whose mentorship program I actually was subscribing to for about 10 years, and some of the other ones. Then in addition to that, I kind of complement things that I do at work. So I'm just going to pause here and just kind of give Amr a chance to, how have you approached mentorship in the past? Like, how do you go about thinking about something like this?
So this is, Aida, I'm not surprised. This is quite detailed and very rigorous. And I'm taking notes looking at some of these. So this is very helpful, and I always learn a lot when I spend time with you. My sort of path to mentorship has came out of my passion for helping people and my passion for coaching. And so when I think about when I think about mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship,
Mhm.
I think that the purpose of I think that mentorship and coaching, at least for me, are both a path to sponsorship. Like we ultimately want to help people accomplish, um, what they set out to accomplish, and so I haven't, from a mentorship perspective and from a sponsorship, and if I think about mentorship versus coaching,
Mhm.
I think I have coached people who have been directly in my care, right? And so if you work for me, I'm going to coach you and I'm going to
Mhm.
figure out what it is you want to accomplish. And then I'm going to figure out how I get you from point A to point Z. Because, and if you do those things, then I will sponsor you to get into that next position.
Mhm.
If you don't work for me and you reach out to me, then I'm going to mentor you because I'm assuming you're reaching out to me because you've seen, hey, look, there's Amr Elgwaily. He works for TD. I really like that company. He has, and a lot of folks who reach out to me are interested in the banking space. And so then they say, hey, I want to learn a little bit about, a little bit about, investment banking or something like that. How do I get involved there? And so I have largely used when I think about how I've helped people. It's largely based on the experience and what I have control over and what I've and what I'm an expert in.
Mhm.
And when I've gone to get mentorship, again, you've given me some resources here, but when I've gone to get mentorship, I've gone to people who I think really know their stuff,
Mhm.
are experts in their areas, and have demonstrated some level of accomplishment at some level of accomplishment, and who also, and this is important because I saw some of the the comments about mentors not wanting to mentor people,
Mhm.
but people who also demonstrate an affinity to helping others.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of the approach that I've taken, Ida, and I can delve into more as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely valid point because number one, one of the things that I notice is titles get in the way, right? So when I have a team that sometimes I have a team of 30, 50, 60, 70 people, right? I always make a point to meet every single one of them and go through in detail. What does your resume look like? What do you want to do? Because they're so hesitant to reach out. Just title gets in the way, right? People have this fear about reaching out to an executive and knowing how to approach and have a conversations. And even what do I ask? What do I even talk to you about? So the way I break that down is one, I make a bigger effort because I know people won't come to me as easily. There's always that, can I even talk to her? What do I even say? So I make an effort to open that door and have that at least initial conversation and see where things go. But break things down as to what do you really need. If you don't know, that's something you need to explore. But if I need to learn how to present, let's say in the executive circles, I will find somebody who's good at that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an executive. It could be anybody that has charisma, that has a way of getting attention, keeping attention, and getting that buy-in. So who around me has that kind of skill set? And I will meet with them, and that will be the focus of my mentorship for the next 6 months, right? How can I improve? They give me feedback and so on and so forth. So sometimes it helps to be very specific. Other times people are very generic, right? I don't know what I don't know. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes when I was looking to move to executive roles, it was confusing to me to understand what do you do? What does an executive do? What does good look like? Because everybody's doing things differently. And I hear complaints from people as to, oh, my boss does this, my boss doesn't do that. So it was very difficult to understand what does good look like. And it's sometimes hard to even ask a question like, I want to get to your level. What will it take? Like, what skills do I need, right? So you need to try to spend a little bit of time with yourself and saying, okay, do I need more education, and who can help me answer those questions? What skills am I missing, and who can help me get with that? And so on and so forth. About the mentors that are not interested, move on. I've had kind of a buddied up a mentorship that was done through the company, and I've followed up with the executive 5 times with his EA. Neither one of them responded. I'm not going to waste my time worrying about that at all. I'm going to go with somebody that has, like Amr says, that has a natural affinity for people and wants to help and wants to help guide. So I will go look for that as much as possible. And yes, it is actually different mentoring Muslims in a workplace, because sometimes when we have to deal with situations, you kind of like, I have to balance what my dean would do in this situation, which means hold things in, don't argue back, and so on and so forth, like if there is a conflict. Whereas in a workplace, you have to resolve conflicts. You have to actually go through the, discussions with your leader or with your peers and make things better, and so on and so forth. So it is, how do I best handle myself as a Muslim ethically in a workplace? It's a thing. It is. There's a nuance of that. How do I stay true to myself and actually still be successful? Right. So something to keep in mind. And again, more than happy to answer any specific questions that you guys have on that particular comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just something on that.
Yeah.
And when I mentor Muslims in the workplace, one thing that I try to maybe get across is we really need to kind of set aside the victim mindset. And some of us have that. We're like, oh, I'm not getting that promotion because I'm a Muslim or this. And that's typically what I hear. And I think when you go to a mentor, and if you're looking at it, you're talking to a sort of a Muslim mentor, a good one is going to tell you, is going to tell you, is not going to tell you, oh yeah, it sucks, and oh well, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, if somebody tells you that, then you need to find a different mentor. And I apologize, that might be a little bit polarizing, but find yourself a different mentor. The fact of the matter is, there are instances where you being a Muslim and actively showing who you are may work against you because discrimination exists. But in the vast majority of cases, it is something else. And so what you need to do is kind of set aside that, oh, it's because I'm Muslim. And unless you have direct evidence, they've said something, like they make comments to you like, if you shaved your beard, then maybe you'd be a little more employable, or maybe you lose the hijab, that kind of thing. Set that stuff, put that stuff, unless those things are coming out, then set that stuff aside and start doing systematic, assessment of what are the skills and capabilities I need to advance in this job, right? And then start having those conversations with your mentor. Set aside the mentor, the victim mindset, and start asking about those things. What can I do better, and where can I pick up that skill? And then how do I publish that I'm capable of doing these things?
Yeah, agreed. And also that imposter syndrome, right? I think we've been talked about that on Tuesday. It came up then, it's going to come up now. That can hold you back from having an honest conversation. And again, like I say, most people, when I say reach out to me, they don't. Even though I try to smile, I try to make sure that they're comfortable. There's this fear inside that holds us back. The mental game that we play with ourselves, that holds you back more than anything else that will externally. And then what Amr said, if the environment is not the right for you, or you're not with the right leader, move on elsewhere where you'll have an opportunity to thrive with different kind of support, right? Okay, so the other thing that was interesting that came up, what do we talk about, right? So I can't take credit for this. This I've got my hands on probably about 15, 18 years ago in one of the training sessions at American Express. And I thought this was so well put together. In essence, I use this actually when I have one-on-ones with everybody. I will take this and I'll actually put it into a screenshot into the invitation. So it kind of gives the persons a little bit of thinking to do in advance of our meeting, right? And how it structures things from, here's some of the things that I need to share with you, right? So where it's high competence, high commitment means I'm confident, I got this covered, I'm going to tell you about it. To the other side is, here are the things that I need direction from and where I need my leader's decision, right? So, and how your conversation is going to go. Now, you could use this in your meetings with your managers. You could use this in your skip levels. You can even use this in your mentorship, right? Where do you have that competency? Because in the, like, I completely agree with Amr. I don't mentor for the sake of mentorship. I want to get to know the person to see, can we get to the sponsorship level? I want to help people in their careers, which means I have to know enough about you, because we're not working together, most likely, for me to confidently recommend you to other areas, to other people, to, you know, for different roles. So I need to know your thought process. I need to understand what you need help with, where are those gaps, and how can we actually get in touch. So this was kind of just an interesting approach. I thought, you know, fantastic resource. I've used this for so many years. Let me share it with this group. Okay, sorry, and I see a question. Amr, do you want to take this one? When seeking mentorship, is it better to seek it from a higher level of leadership or middle management?
Sure. I think that's, first of all, that's an excellent question, or an excellent question. You know, Aisha, it depends. I think what you've got to do is figure out what it is you ultimately want from the mentorship relationship, right? If it's because you want to advance, you want somebody who at some point is going to become a sponsor for you, then go as high as you can in the organization as possible. But if it's to build, Aida's earlier comment, a certain skill set, you see somebody who's really good at selling product, or somebody who's really good at making presentations, and that's something that you want to learn, then it doesn't matter. Just find the person and engage them. And what you'll find is, more often than not, people are more than happy to share, you know, their secret sauce on how they do so well in those aspects, those things with you.
Yep, I completely agree. Honestly, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And I've had mentorship from people that report to me. So they could be 1 or 2 levels down. I'm okay with that, because if I don't know how my area works or certain area functions, then I will reverse mentor, right, with them, to help them teach me and have a better understanding. So it's all about, how do I get the knowledge that I need to be successful, right? Can you have more than one mentor at a given time? Okay, so I'm just gonna go back up to this slide. Literally, my life, right? You know, I definitely reach out to different people for different things. So absolutely, you can and should have multiple mentors, because, you know, if I had a mentor at one point that was fantastic at selling business cases. He could get a buy-in like nobody I've ever seen. And that's what I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand, how can I put a presentation or business case together in front of executive team and get that buy-in. However, his lifestyle and the way of working with people, and you know, that he caused a lot of contention with others. So I got a lot of comments like, how could you mentor with him? Like, what are you trying to learn from him, right? So I'm not trying to emulate every aspect of my mentor's life. I'm trying to learn the one skill that I need to learn, and I'll get things that I need from somebody else, right? So I will learn from Simply on Purpose about parenting. I will learn from Dr. Berg on, you know, my health, and, you know, how I can improve on that. So that everybody serves a purpose in your life. So your mentorship is never going to be one, because your deen, think of all of the, you know, Sahaba, think of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, think of everybody that surrounds him that you're learning from. It's not a one-on-one, one-to-one, and that's it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. You know, Aida, if I could just, you know, opine on this too. I have so many mentors, and those mentorships are also in different degrees too. So there are mentors that I speak to, you know, monthly. There are mentors I speak to when I need to speak to them. So that could be sometimes, depending on what I'm going through, you know, a few times a week, or you know, all the way up to, there are mentors that I speak to once a quarter, once a year. So it all depends. And I have mentors inside the bank, and I have mentors outside of the bank. And, you know, I've never had an issue with my direct manager, because typically, one, you're not walking around going, you know, publishing your list of mentors saying, here, look at all the folks I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And yeah, and two, you're typically not picking a mentor who is your boss's boss. So I'm just like, as long as you stay out of that, then you're in good shape.
Yeah. And to that, like, if I prefer always transparency. So what I'll do is, again, I go through, and if you join our performance management webinar that's coming up, I'm very transparent on, here's the things that I'm working on, and to work on ABCD, here's who I'm thinking of reaching out. Do you know anybody better? Is there somebody that you would recommend that I could meet? But it's my development plan, my career, not something I put on my on my leaders ever to manage for me, or help drive. I am in charge of where I want to go next and the skills that I want to develop. So I'm transparent around what I want to learn, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. If that upsets my boss, that's their problem, not an Aida problem. Okay. Experienced mentor, what are some of the things you recommend mentees can and should do to give back to their mentors in their relationship? Amr, do you want to try this one?
Sure. So when I'm working with a mentee, if you're going to ask me for my time, and I am going to give it to you, and I'm going to say, here are the things you need to do to be successful. My expectation is that you are going to implement those things, right? And or be in the process of implementing them before you come back and speak with me. And for those of you on the phone who are joined and have actually engaged me, I will typically say this to you. You'll sit down, you'll say, hey, here's what I'm struggling with. What do I do? And I will say one of two things. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. If I don't, I'll be upfront and say, I don't know how to help you here. But if I do, I'll say, here's what I would do in your scenario. And I will say, this is what I've seen before, and this is what I've seen work. Go off and do these things and come back to me and keep me in the loop. And more often than not, people don't come back to me. So I'm assuming, they didn't really want to implement, or they didn't really value the advice I was giving them. But there are also a number of folks who fortunately have done well, have done what I've said and of what I've advised them to do, and say, hey, Amr, I've done these things. What do I do now? Or this didn't quite work out. How do I tweak this, and so on and so forth. So your mentor's like, okay, I'm getting feedback from what I've advised this person. I know they're making, I hadn't thought that thing through, but now I see what they're struggling with, so I can then tweak my advice to help them. So from a mentor's perspective, right? From a mentor's perspective, you're giving me feedback and helping me refine and think, oh, I hadn't thought of that scenario. So, but I think I know, based on my experience, what you can do in that scenario. So it's helping us build our experience, so I can then sort of pass that on to another mentee. And so, and from a mentee's perspective, you're also gaining the knowledge and experience and kind of thoughtfulness of the mentor. So that's how I view the sort of two-way relationship.
Yeah, I like that. And honestly, just to add to it, I get so much out of the conversation and meeting people that I don't feel like anybody owes me anything ever. But to be transparent, like in the past X number of months, I've been looking for a new role, and I just cannot tell you how many of my previous mentees that are in different companies have been reaching out, sharing, oh, can you apply here? Can you apply there? This would be great for you. I mean, it's just incredible, right? How people just then choose to pay it forward or pay it back in some other ways. Like you just, you're building what I hope is a comfortable relationship, right? And long-term friendship, especially in this community. We're number one already, all brothers and sisters, right? We're just getting to know each other a little bit more, right? So, there's no losing in this at all. So I hope that you have really fantastic experiences, but do let us know if, I think the Max Mentors volunteers are more than happy to hear the feedback and help adjust things as we go along. Okay, how can we build strong personal connection with a mentor, given that in-person interactions often leave a more lasting impact? Maybe, but again, I am really as I am in real life, as I am on this webinar. There really is absolutely no difference. So I try for the most transparent, the most honest, straightforward virtual experience. So there's really not that much of a difference in meeting me in person. So I don't mind. I mean, I've been meeting people throughout across all of Canada and US for mentorship anyway. So I didn't find that really makes too much of an impact. It's fantastic when we see each other, but it's not really a must. So I would say give it your all, right? Come into it with transparency, cards on the table, and I'm sure you'll walk away happier than if you come in very reserved. Amr, any tips there?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ida. It's obviously in-person interactions are better for building relationships. Like it's easier, but I think many of the mentor relationships that I have now may have started for me during the pandemic, and so it started virtual, and after a few years, I finally met the person in person. So no issues there.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so again, so I'm going to give you a sample conversation schedule. You don't need to follow this. On this call, we have mentors and mentees, right? But this kind of gives you an idea of an approach. You can take it any which way you'd like, right? So for me, what I do is the meet and greet, that initial session. I always feel like the onus on me is to reduce the tension, because again, I've always found people more nervous to meet me than I was meeting them. So when we go through our introductions, I go into details and understand as much as possible about the person that I'm to be mentoring over the next few months, what they hope to accomplish. I like to have them go through their resume in detail. And what I get a sense of, what are they proud of? What do they really like? What is that passion comes out? Because if you just kind of tell me about yourself in like 6 sentences, that's not going to cut it. I like to really have a good understanding of a person, their preferences, what are their development opportunities, and what are some of the outcomes, where could I help them? And then in the next couple of sessions, I will go all out in terms of sharing any resources, anything that I have at my disposal, any job opportunities that may be in my area that they may be looking, because honestly, many people that are signing up for the mentorship program are looking for jobs. So we really, as mentors, lean in as much as possible for that. And then I'll actually immediately make connections for them with other people. Here's who else you can talk to. Here's some introductions and so on and so forth. So if there's anything that I need to review, that they've sent me, that they want feedback, their resume, their cover letter, their LinkedIn, whatever that may be, we'll review that and focus on development. And then again, if there's anything around their area of expertise, development, maybe some sample of job descriptions. If they have an expertise here, but they're trying to make a lateral move somewhere else where they don't have direct experience, what does that look like? What do they need to get there? Sometimes people just don't know what they don't know, right? And then the last 3 calls are like generally open. Like once we've gotten things comfortable with each other, then we really focus on any takeaways, what do we need to touch point on, and the last session is always the wrap up. Any recommendations that I have for the mentee or mentor, like Amr said, like we also like to learn where we can improve, and then we leave it at that. If there is a fantastic relationship that we build on, then we continue our dialogue ad hoc as needed from there on in. But at least this way, we spend some quality time together. We used our time wisely on both sides and made the most out of it. And sorry, I see a question on how do you know who your mentor is. So if you've signed up to the mentorship program, you'll get more details on the site itself, but there is a matching that's going to be happening in the background. There's a speed mentoring event, I believe, that are planned in different locations as well. So stay tuned for those as well. So the team will tell you once all the sign up completes, so stay tuned for more for that. And then how often should we be meeting our mentors? Amr, what do you think? What's a good time?
Yeah, so what I found is for the people I mentor, I have them we're on a monthly schedule. So we have a set date, each month that we meet. But also if something comes up and they don't want to wait, they just call me or reach out. And so that's It's one date where we know we're going to meet, and we talk about what we're going to talk about the next time, at the end of each conversation. So, and then if something happens in the middle where where they need to meet or they need guidance on something, they can call me anytime and I prioritize it.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I mean, we develop programs with a specific purpose, just because then everybody understands what to expect, right? But again, this is driven by you in your conversation with your mentor or mentee, and then you will hopefully have many other mentorship relationships that are outside of this that help. That will help you develop, and you set what works for your own personal development, and obviously depending on what you're looking to work on. Okay, so I mean, we're more than happy to switch over to the Slido and do audience Q&A as well. So I'm just going to peek over there in case we have some questions. Okay, we do. Fantastic. All right. Okay. All right, this is a good one for you, Amr. Are you ready?
All right, let's go.
Challenge is being straightforward with my goals and priorities with a mentor instead of feeling pressured to cave in to what the mentor thinks I need or should do. How do you do something like that?
So how do you manage that when the mentor tells you something that you don't think is right for you? Mm-hmm. So what I would do is, if a mentor says something to you that you're like, I don't think that's going to work for me, a couple things. I would raise that with the mentor and I would give them a little bit more context. Like maybe there's something they don't see, right? And maybe there's something that they don't understand about the context in which you're operating, which is why they gave you the feedback in the first place. But have that discussion, right? Because remember, you're wading into the reason you're going to talk to that mentor in the first place is you think that they know something that you do not. So you're seeking guidance. And so it's interesting when you ask for guidance, they give you the guidance, and you're like, no, that's not going to work. Well, why? You haven't seen that situation before. They probably have, and they're saying, this is what I think will work for you. If you don't think it is, explain to them, have the discussion. And maybe what you'll see is the mentor may change their guidance or their feedback to you based on additional information. And if you still don't believe it, and if you're like, I still don't agree, well, that's fine. You don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on that as well. It really helps when the mentor actually spends time in understanding who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, right? If they don't, then their advice may fall like off to the wayside. But this is assuming that they've actually spent that time. And if you've tried things, again, your life is complicated. You probably tried some things and had a different outcome. I would always bring that up for transparency.
Can I just maybe add one more comment?
Yeah, always.
One of the things that I've found with mentorships is, they start off really clunky, right? They start off really clunky. Like, Aida has given you a framework here where you're like, okay, when I'm trying to get a mentor, this is what I kind of have to go through. And that initial get to know you phase, that's clunky. It's just like when you're getting to know, you're trying to get married and you're like, I got to get to know this other person. Very rarely is it like love at first sight. At first, it's like the first few little bit, is this the right person for me? Do they really get me? Like, what's the word my kids use? Are we vibing or something like that? Right? Like that's what it's like. So it's awkward. And so if you're going into these mentorship relationships, the first few little bit, it's going to be awkward. And so there's a lot more structure and the structure's there to help you get through those conversations and kind of drive those conversations. But if you've got the right mentor, it then begins to organically grow and develop. And before then, and after then, the conversations will be organic, right? In the sense of just the same way you're talking to, an older brother or sister or somebody who you would go to for advice on any day of the week. Like, that's ultimately what we'll get to. And so, you will get more and more comfortable with that as it goes up. So the key is be consistent and, make sure you're meeting with the mentor consistently and give the relationship time to kind of build itself. And if you see that the mentor if you get the sense, and we all have these gut feelings, right? If the mentor is committed to your development and making time, just give it time, because what you want is ultimately somebody who is committed to helping you. And they might not get it straight, like right the first time, because they need to learn more about you. So so just be patient with these things.
I concur. Good advice. Okay, I'm gonna go back into some of the other comments. They're short conversations where most time is wasted in unrelated topics and not focused on mentorships. Again, this is why I gave you the structure, right? Own the time that you have there to make sure you're getting most out of it. So the structure sometimes helps. Sometimes it can get in the way, like your call. But if you're coming in with, hey, here's some of the things that I want to talk to you about, now you're owning the agenda, right? You're owning what's going to happen in this time frame, right? Because they don't know you either, and like Amr says, like you end up kind of circling around things, and at the end of an hour, what did you really accomplish? So I highly recommend really thinking through, leveraging some of these, or ping us offline. We'll talk about it. We can give you some advice on how to approach it. Okay, let's see. How do you structure the meetings? I think we've touched on that. Just trying to see. Is there anyone here that we did not answer?
There's a new one in the chat, in the comments.
Yeah.
Around reaching out to folks on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I have always found that's a little bit kind of touch and go, reaching out to folks on LinkedIn. I've found some folks are really open to having the conversation. Others are not. There's nothing you can do about it, right? They're busy. They've got other priorities. I would, reach out to them and be real crisp. If you're going to reach out to somebody, don't write a full letter, right? Just be real crisp. Here's who I am. I saw you talked about this. I'm really interested in the topic. Do you have 15 to 30 minutes? I've got some questions I would love to get your thoughts on. And be real crisp on what you're looking for in a short worded email. I think that or a what's the comment in their LinkedIn, not like a direct message within LinkedIn. And I found that typically works better. That's that way they're not, they're like, oh, I got to read an essay to figure out what this person wants, right? And don't be ambiguous on what you're looking for. Again, most people are happy to talk about like their area of expertise.
Yeah. Agreed. The one thing that I'll give you just a little tip, because I've been having to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn last few months. Not many people are on it as frequently as you think, right? They might not have the notifications on. They might not have, they like even the emails if somebody asks a question or sends them a message. So sometimes, you send this question out there into the void, and there's nobody there responding. And it's not because, it might give you the impression that, this person doesn't care or anything like that. They're just not logged into LinkedIn as often as you think. So one of the things, again, I highly recommend is making sure that you are out there networking in different areas, not just in an area of your expertise. Like, this is why I honestly love Max events. So if you haven't attended, I highly recommend it. Even, let's say, for example, the women in leadership event that we had a week ago or so. Fantastic event. You meet so many different people from all walks of in different stages of their career, and you never know who you're going to meet. And there's so many others like that it'll surprise you. So I would say, take advantage of any of the opportunities to get out there, get to know people, and grow your network. And if it's not a private topic, I've seen some folks create a post to say, hey, here's the unique circumstances. What do you guys think about this? Well, how would you approach solving this problem? And then all of a sudden, people will post, and then their network also sees that question, and then all of a sudden it's you have thousands of comments. Again, if it's not a personal question, it's just kind of generic, that may be one way to go. Okay, so I actually think that we've gone through all the questions, which is fabulous. But if you do have more, again, Aisha, shout out, Ali, Farah, for you guys who have been chatting with us, but also for those of you who have already reached out to us on LinkedIn. One of the things that I will ask all of you as we kind of wrap up, number one, thank you, Amr. It's been so fantastic having you here. I hope you come back. We'll pick a new topic.
Anytime. And actually, can I just, before you kick me off and we shut things down here, just to anybody here, please reach out. And I offer this in any forum I'm in, right? But if you have any questions or looking for a mentor and you're like, can I talk to Amr? 100%, reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn. Daida's like, I'm not on it all the time. Or sometimes I will see your message and I'll be like, okay, I'll get to it later. And later becomes like 2-3 weeks, but I will get to it. And if I haven't gotten back to you in 2 to 3 weeks, just message me again. Don't be worried about it.
Yeah.
So please feel free to reach out. And then the other thing I'm going to leave you with is, I know this is kind of a Max forum. I don't know if there are any sort of non-Muslims on here, but for the Muslims here, your organizations tend to have really good mentorship programs in place. You need both Muslim and non-Muslim mentors. So look for Muslim mentors. And like Aida will take it, I'll do it. There's a whole bunch of people in Max that will help you. But also engage in the non-Muslim, with non-Muslim mentors, and engage in the mentorship programs in your organization. It is important to build your networks and learn and be able to learn from people who are not of the same kind of cultural, religious background that you're from. It will expand it really will sort of expand your horizons, and it'll expand your experiences, and give you a different way of thinking that you're not going to get from just, a Muslim person telling you how to operate as a Muslim. You'll learn. And it is also important for you to engage, because and Aida and I mentioned earlier, these mentorships are a two-way street. And just like you will learn from your mentor will learn from you. And, we as Muslims, unfortunately, we don't always have the best, people don't know enough about us and sometimes think things that aren't true. So that gives an opportunity for you to help somebody understand who you are, as well as you learning from them. So that would be my plug. Engage with your organizations, get to know non-Muslims, and look for non-Muslim mentors as well as Muslim mentors.
Nice. Thank you. So for the rest, I just want to have a quick call to action. Again, mentorship program open. Please do sign up. We do send survey. We want to hear, how did this go? Do weekends work better for you versus weekdays? That's important for us to know. And any other topics. If you want access to the resources, you will only get them if you're signed up for the mentorship for the webinars themselves. So let's make sure that, as the upcoming webinars are coming up, do please sign up. Show us some love on Instagram, LinkedIn, and, share the webinars themselves, the series, the mentorship program, and any of the Max events with with friends, family, and colleagues. So again, we're so happy that you joined us here on Sunday on this dreary day where I am at. Really an honor to have you here, and pleasure always speaking to Amr. Thank you to our volunteers, Farhan and Kareem, for organizing us in the back end. And thanks everybody else. And I'll try, if there's more questions that I did not get to, I'll try to get to you directly and help respond. How do we sign up for webinar series? You'll find posts on the Instagram, LinkedIn, and onemax.org. So you'll see that there. And then let me just see. Is LinkedIn and other networking conferences the best way to find those non-Muslim mentors? Start with your workplace, I would recommend. And if even if it's not there, I find even in other departments of the same organization, you could always find people that are willing to mentor. So, and I think Ali, we met you on Tuesday. Welcome back. It looks like you'll be reaching out to Amr for a conversation. All right, and I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak, and we'll talk to you at the next webinar. Thanks.
Alaikum salam.